Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa and Internet World. How are we doing today? Welcome in. This is another edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube page. You're watching it on my own Facebook page, on Twitter at Joe Gaither6. You can find me on all the social medias at Joe Gaither6 right there. Send us your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. Welcome in. This will be another fun edition of the Joe Gaither Show on a Tuesday. Actually, it's going to be a recorded show. We will be on the road when this hits live at 1 p.m. We're on the road to Nashville. Myself, Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, we're all headed up there with Austin Hannon. Austin already up in Nashville watching SEC Media Days. Austin was in front of Greg Sankey yesterday, in front of Greg Sankey, Brian Kelly, Eli Drinkwitz, and Jimbo Fisher. So we're going to catch up with Austin today. We'll be up there later in the afternoon. Austin's going to hold down the fort while we get there because Wednesday is Alabama Day up at SEC Media Day. So we are very, very excited to get up there. But for now, we're going to have a fun Tuesday show. We want to invite you to listen to the program on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. You can also, again, watch it if you want to visually see it on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Tell a friend about the program. We're having a lot of fun bringing in as many fun guests as we can. And I think we're going to have a fun guest today. One of my friends, we're going to be welcoming it. We're going to be joined by my friend, Mr. John DeWitt. John DeWitt joins us as he is the director of athletic grounds at the University of Alabama. And the real reason why we're bringing on John DeWitt, not just because he's my friend, there is great news around Alabama football and facilities. So because, we can go right to the director's mouth. We're going to hear about the new field at Bryant-Denny Stadium that is just finishing ahead of the new season. We're going to hear about really all the challenges about athletic grounds because, John, I think a lot of people don't understand or don't know what goes into keeping the facilities beautiful. Good morning, John. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Oh, doing good. Doing really good. I'm having a good morning so far. We're ready to get on the road and get up to Nashville. I really appreciate you joining us today. John, I'm bringing you in because Bryant-Denny Stadium just completed a huge project over the summer. Alabama's getting ready to kick off a new season, 46 days. And so we got a new field. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, you and your team have been working on for the last however many months? I also want to know how long it's been taking, that sort of thing.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, the planning stages goes back almost like 18 months ago. We're really in an overall 10-year plan of renovating all the fields, and Bryant-Denny was 31 years old, so about the oldest, also, the mothership. So it's going to get, the first it's going to be the first one on the list of the different fields that we work with. And so, yeah, a lot of planning, really like boots on the ground stuff happening in the stadium started February. There was a small window between, when all the contractual legal stuff got taken care of and A-Day. And that team really crushed that window, did a bunch of like heavy, gnarly construction that no one will ever see. But it was maybe one of the hardest parts of the project. And that went on from February until A-Day. And then certain parts of it, like the irrigation, had to get worked on, but then also had to still be usable because A-Day. So they weren't able to just rip out all the old stuff. They had to keep it functional, and we'd be like 2-3 days without water and then back, but which wasn't a big deal because that time of year. But yeah, these guys have been at it since February. Grass went down. I think they got done Wednesday night at 10 last week. We got our first mow on it yesterday.
That's incredible. So for just the overview, people who haven't seen, we have replaced the entire field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and not just the surface level of the field. I'm reading that down the depths, roughly 30 inches deep into the field is irrigation systems, pipes, is really everything that goes into the field was a total overhaul. Not just, hey, let's plant some grass, hey, let's plant some new sod. You guys are putting down Northbridge Bermuda grass, but more importantly, I'm reading about a sub-air system underneath Bryant-Denny Stadium that will take Alabama really to the tip top, where you guys have always had us with facilities. How challenging was it to really get that, the depth of the system? And I'm reading also that Stanford is the only other college football program that has this system. Was there any consultation with the University of Stanford, or any consultation about, hey, this is the right steps that Bryant-Denny Stadium needs to take?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there. You want to start with the construction, and we'll move.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
specialty system. So basically, everything within the gates of the bowl of the field came out at like 22 inches deep. I think that was 20,000 tons of material that came out and came back in. That was like 900 dump trucks, which I don't know if you can hear like the noise.
It's all good.
Anyway, but right outside my door here, they broke the concrete. If people are familiar with the stadium, gate 57, they broke that concrete out to fit the dump trucks in, which was really a logistical thing that the other contractors that were bidding on the project just hadn't figured out. We were talking about having 2 different conveyors. You got to rent those. They're crazy expensive. Then they block your access. They were going to run one at both ends because they're unreliable and they tend to break down. So at any given time, probably only one of the 2 would be running. But these guys were like, hey, since we can't make the roof taller, let's make the floor lower. So in the grand scheme, taking out that much concrete was no big deal. So, 22 inches. That was about the root zone of the old field. So it's 22 inches of sand over like a geotextile and the native soil. I like to say Chief Tuscaloosa's campground, like under there, like
yes, sir.
Native soil, the original virgin undisturbed stuff. And so the issue with that, it was a really deep root zone of 22 inches, but there was no gravel layer. And what the gravel layer, think of like marbles sitting on top of bowling balls, right? So that's like sand over our gravel. So the bowling balls would represent all this extra pore space. So that water at some point will get so heavy in the sand that gravity will just pull it right through into the open pore space of the gravel underneath. The old system didn't have that. It drained very well, but you didn't ever get that complete flush. So we were coming back with our root zone is about 11 or 12 inches of sod and special sand that, is tested and spec'd. And it came out of Atlanta, and that's just a geography thing. You just wherever in the country you are, you got to deal with your sands, and sometimes it has to get trucked in from far away. And that was where we were on that. And that's super, super important. I mean, the root zone is the field and the performance. So since it was 22 inches deep, we just came in with some road base and rock and just, whatnot to fill up that void, because our overall actual, engineered root zone was, like I was saying, 11 to 12 inches of sod over 4 inches of gravel. And so then those other inches were made up with just fill.
And so you talk about gate 57. The fans are never going to notice kind of the expanded gate. Is that, I'm just assuming, the expanded gate to open up those dump trucks?
Oh yeah, we're pouring it back right now, and
that's incredible.
You'll never even know that occurred. Really, that's right.
That is awesome. Well, you talk about 18-month long the process. Really, being the director of the athletic grounds, are you obviously there are decision makers and people, the powers to be the money people. But how much input are you guys having with? Hey, this is what needs to be done. These are the right steps that that Bryant-Denny Stadium needs to take to upgrade the playing surface.
Man. I'm exceptionally blessed in that regard, because so often administration or some guys, field selling guy will be a buddy or get in with some administrators and sell them this system or this thing, and they'll go down that path. But really, putting a lot of pressure on myself, I mean, I've been involved in every part of the process, and really lucky in that. I'm thinking to Arkansas from a couple of years ago. And sometimes it just happens that the renovation occurs at a transition. The old guy there was retiring and new guy hadn't been brought in yet. So sometimes the project just falls where there's kind of a lack of that position being there to guide things. So, they rebuilt their entire field a couple of years ago and then came back and put synthetic sidelines in a year or two later. Well, we've had the benefit too of seeing some of these projects going on and learn from the different things. So we took, and synthetic sidelines is catching on in the SEC. I'm thinking A&M has they've kind of got a unique sort of surround. Ole Miss has kind of very similar to what we're doing. Overall, our field was based on an NFL model. The architects that we used, I think their client list was amazing, but I think they worked with the Raiders in Vegas and stuff. But anyway, we looked at, like Google Maps of, different fields, and it was based on an NFL model. So that's why you see like the kind of an interesting little thing. So we have the synthetic sidelines, and then there's a 20 by 21 foot box in each synthetic sideline for the kickers to warm up, which is kind of like something we picked up from the NFL. It's going to be kind of a bear to maintain. I'm not super excited about that. But, I mean, you have to do that, to give those guys, some, otherwise they're practicing kicking on synthetic, which isn't going to match their conditions when they hit the field.
Absolutely. What's the advantage of having a synthetic sideline versus the entire field continuity? Is it a cost or a maintenance issue? What is the what goes into the synthetic sideline?
Just the pressure for people to get closer to the fields, donors, social media. It's the field, man. The people want to get closer to the field, which just makes my job hard. I mean, my job's hard as it is, but like the thing is the time to do our work, because somebody's shooting a commercial at Bryant-Denny, or this or that. I'm thinking a couple years back with the Bachelorette or whatever came out. Well, I mean, that's a day of work I lost because there was a television show going on out there. That's kind of unrelated, but so anyway, the point is the crush of people trying to get close to the field, and so the synthetic sidelines just. They just wear and tear. It can take that. See, every year it's more gear for the trainers, more gear for the equipment managers, and the synthetic, the air conditioned benches that we have. So it allows, that's just not on grass like it was in the past. And it's very hard to maintain and keep those areas not muddy and disgusting. There's a lot of complaints you hear from people. If it's a rainy game, the field drain's good, but the sidelines don't. Even if they're built well, which a lot of times they're not, just the compaction from all the traffic over there. And so we just felt, and for example, with the Tide Pride people come out and take pictures before the games. Now that'll all be synthetic, instead of like before they had to come in through a gate, walk on the grass, and then take their picture and leave. And that's a mob of people. And now it's really almost like a safety thing too, a little bit, because these people are going to have it like their own gate. Going to come on the synthetic, take their picture and leave, and they're not going to be traipsing around compacting the corners, like receivers, doing a route out that way.
That is incredible. I would not have even imagined the impact of the people on the sidelines kind of going through the entirety of the field. That's incredible.
Yeah, so all that used to be grass. It's hard to maintain.
Yeah.
So now, like, our air-conditioned benches probably will stay in position, but from game to game, they don't have to move off because of, the natural grass. It'll help us, too, from a maintenance standpoint with the blankets, which was one of the real driving factors behind trying. Coach Saban doesn't like ryegrass. Feels like it's slick, and I can't disagree with him. And so with the playoff picture expanding into possibly December 17th, trying to keep those field conditions good, you got to run – cover the field with a blanket, keep it warm, and then the sub air will help us with that too. But now it used to take us as much time to kind of get the blankets onto the field and on the sidelines, just that step, as it did to get them on the actual field surface. And so now we'll store those on the synthetic and then be able to roll them. It'll give us a lot more flexibility, which is ultimately better for the team, right? Yeah. So.
You just hit really two of my next notes. The one, Coach Saban's attitude towards facilities. Yeah, I wanted to ask really how particular people, to think about how process oriented he is, how particular he is with the facilities staff, and then secondly, you talk about the playoff picture and how well the field will be maintained in late November, December. How much of an eye for the playoffs was, the decision making? We got to make the grass, make sure the grass looks good, make sure it's playable, and have everybody look good on TV in December.
Well, so when we were researching this, it was in our minds, and I was talking to administrators. So, I don't, Greg's on, on the board, and high level, obviously, in the world of athletics. So, if anybody's going to know, and during the planning process, it was funny. It came out that yes, indeed, everybody knew it was probably getting expanded, but we didn't know, no, right? And then while we were in the planning stages, boom, it dropped. It's like, yes, the playoffs expanding to a home. So was really, we had already been researching the sub air and the different systems of that to stretch our season. But when it was fully, confirmed that playoffs were expanding, that kind of was the final, push to put some of these extra systems in place. And you would know, I don't really follow sports, but I mean, you would know that, right? Like, so if last season had occurred in 25, we would have hosted a game here on the 17th. So, I mean, there's all your reasonings as to behind what we did, and why we're doing what we're doing.
And how much interaction or how much input does Coach Saban really have on? Okay, we want to keep the grass at this site, or we want to keep. Obviously, we got Northbridge Bermuda. You talked about him not liking ryegrass. What is his attention to detail like with Bryant-Denny Stadium, and then even over at Malmore facility where you guys are mowing the grass 3-4 times a week?
Yeah, I guess I don't really have that much interaction with him. I deal with Ellis from kind of a scheduling. I deal with him on the scheduling. I deal with Jeff Springer on like the more the field conditions. Like, the fields kind of fall under the equipment umbrella, and I guess they're happy with what we're doing because we hadn't, I mean, in athletics, no news is good news, right?
Yes.
The only reason someone's talking about me on TV is because the field's not good, right? I mean, think the Super Bowl field wouldn't have been mentioned one time had they not had issues, right? So, Coach doesn't. I really, this is a great program to work with. I call it setting the table and walking away. I know when and what and how. I know everything about what they're doing, so that allows me to set the table for them exactly like they like it. And I'm like, I don't have time to sit there and watch practice, man. I got to go be working on baseball, soccer, softball, other things, and run this program. But they allow me to set the table. Other programs just aren't as dialed in as we are, and that makes the groundskeeper have to jump, or coach will have an idea. Hey, let's bring some big loudspeakers and go have a run at the rec center. And guy will decide that on a Sunday morning. So he has to get out there like Sunday afternoon, Monday morning early, and get that all set up for, I mean, what's that really gaining your program overall other than running your people into the ground? Where's Coach Saban? It's like, hey, Monday we're going to be on field 3 and we're going to do this. Yes, you are, So, in that regard, no news is good news. And I know what they want, and I do my best to provide that for them. And we go, everybody does their role and goes about their business.
There are 3 full fields in the Malmore Center with the two synthetic fields as well. So it's 5 total.
Well, so it's about 7 acres. You have field 1, you have field 2, and you have field 3, which has like a little rump on it, a little quarter field that mostly just gets used for strength and conditioning and real aggressive drills like ladders and stuff that you wouldn't want on your playing surface. And then the indoor is like about a field and a third. And they have, and this is once again why Coach Saban is such a great guy to work. I'm talking to him directly, but from my understanding, it's him that drives and understands the grass, and it's like they have a strict rotation schedule to, a lot of times the groundskeeper like me is asking the coach to do that, and they just refuse. And I'm going to, they either big league you or just are obstinate, or so there's a lot of reasons, but. Yeah, no, Coach Saban, as I understand, actually is the one that has set these in place to use the acreage that we have out there so it lasts and does, which makes my job easier. I mean, So, yep, we back.
Oh, yes, no, it's all good. Just little quick glitch. It's no big deal. We're talking to John DeWitt, Director of Athletic Grounds here at the University of Alabama, mainly because Bryant-Denny Stadium just underwent a huge stadium renovation, a huge field renovation project. But John, you're over everything at the University of Alabama, not just football. You're over everything, and you and your team have won multiple awards. Most recent one I'm seeing is the 2021 College Softball Field of the Year. You guys have been really at the forefront of making tip-top facilities. Just how difficult and just how packed and how crazy is the schedule once really things get rolling?
Man, it's just year round. And then COVID threw a monkey wrench into things, and it's just in the NCAA changes. You get on a program and recruiting windows are this, but it's always more. It's always one more camp. It's always one more this, or NCAA allows practice to start 3 days earlier, and it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's not like, hey, you can practice all summer, but they're doing it 3 days at a time until, hey man, football is really only off in May, which is not a great grass growing weather month. And so what do you do? It's difficult, man. Like 3 of my guys stayed through, or 4 of the guys stayed through the night. We restarted the practice fields. They came in at 6 p.m. and left at like 3 in the morning, 3 days in a row. Boom, 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 boom. I usually work the days because there's, I got to manage the operation, and that, those are people hours.
Right.
I can't like work till 3 and then be all strung out and messed up the next day trying to field phone calls and handle stuff. And and then this weekend, I think we worked 12 hours, Saturday, Sunday. Yesterday, I came in at 5:15 and left at 6 p.m. That's just some random Monday, So we really, and success is good, but it's also a lot of work. You think like really this last year was tough. Soccer started, they were #1 in the country for however long. Well, those postseason games, man, are on a like football weekend. So we're hosting a football game, which takes all week to paint, 12-hour days straight up, any bait football game that there ever is. And then Sunday, playoff game for soccer. And then softball is just perennially good. So you go softball regional, softball super regional, baseball super regional that we hadn't hosted in like 14 or something years, and so just some people weren't familiar with what all that entails, and man, I think the first day of baseball regional, football camp season started. Well, man, when you take a breath, it's a lot. It really is.
Just incredible. I guess we're happy when basketball and gymnastics season is going. Just a touch, because that's leave that to the indoor facility guys, maybe.
Yeah, spring is really brutal.
Oh.
And, fall football is tough. Kind of the toughest thing is trying to get football playing and trying to do, and it's great the success we've had in bringing more students, but the more students on campus, like I have other places, so like 25, 30-minute loss just to physically get from Bryant-Denny to baseball, you know? Right. So try to have everything self-contained and avoid just, actually I've been blessed with like good logistics, and that helps us in that regard. But man, you could piddle away hours just driving through campus.
John, you hit earlier on the Super Bowl and the issues that they had with their field. What I read after the game was the field got watered and then rolled back into the stadium and basically sat there and molded. What goes into that? Like, it's the biggest game of the year. Isn't that something that is it kind of absurd to have happened?
I'm gonna try not to comment on that too much. You and I can talk offline because I think I have the actual scoop. But
okay.
You remember there was a national championship in that building a couple years ago? More than a couple, like 10. Auburn. Remember?
Auburn and Oregon. Yes.
Was it Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah. And remember, it was slipping and sliding. So I think they've had like kind of the building's cool. The grass is outside, it's hot. It comes inside. You can condensate, and it sets up. So there were a lot of things involved in the Super Bowl, but it just goes to show too, just how like this at that level, it's way beyond groundskeeping. Even like here, the political and the backstabbing and like the people vying for position and contract. I mean, it's tough. So, and it's unfortunate, right? You know, because sometimes the best decisions for the field, for the players, for the grass doesn't get made because of all the intrigue that none of us know unless you work in the business.
Yeah, I'm reading the paint job on the field. Kind of maybe people wanted particular paint on the field, and I guess the outgoing groundskeeper wanted it one way, and the ingoing groundskeeper wanted it another way. I just can't imagine for you guys and your staff. Isn't it always or hopefully about the safety of the players and the competition on the field, and really the conditions that make for a fair and good game?
I mean, that's what everybody's striving for. But you know, I don't want to upset you, but I mean, the NFL's its own thing. You know,
sure.
Like the halftime show, from, what I understand, just dominates. You know, they want to have like 5 practices during the week, and you're talking. I haven't watched Super Bowl in a couple of years, but I mean, they flood the field with people with the LED lights and all. I mean, they're like stomping around out there for 5 days, man. I mean, like, when do you get the field ready? You don't, because whatever big star in the moment's out there practicing her bit or his bit.
Yeah.
Prince. Anyway,
that's. Okay, and with that, I think that answers or brings me to another question or another comment about Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think a lot of people have, over the last 10 years, why doesn't Alabama host concerts? Auburn has concerts at their stadium.
It's my understanding when I first got here, they looked into it, like an artist. I don't know if it was driven by the artist or a producer or production. There's a lot of layers to all that, right? Wanted to have one. The main, just like the field construction, logistics. Which Taylor Swift's traveling around with 77 18-wheelers, something like that. We had the Rolling Stones at Georgia Tech when I worked there, downtown, middle of Atlanta, 55 18-wheelers. That crap's got to get in the building in 3 to 4 days. I mean, they've got it all figured out how to make the money, right? And it's got to get in there in 3 to 4 days, and it's got to get out in 2. And they haven't quite cracked that nut here yet.
Sure.
Because if you're gonna have a Taylor Swift size stage in this building, if you're gonna do something right, and it just takes time to build and then time to get out.
Well, John, I've really enjoyed our conversation this morning. I really appreciate you hanging out with us on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com. Alabama hosting MTSU on September 2nd. I think I read a comment in an article, in an interview that you did about, what happens if you're not ready? And your comment was, no chance we're not ready. Just kind of the pressure that you guys felt to really make sure this project went off without a hitch or got done in time for Alabama's new season.
Well, I just found out last night our mutual buddy Ken Urban he told me last night he's been praying for us all along, and I'm like, man, it's been working because it has run so smooth that I've been scared to talk about how smooth it's running. I'm kind of a Murphy's Law believer, which I guess probably is in conflict with my faith, but no, a little. It's like baseball, right? You don't talk about certain things, especially in game time. Boy, this game's going fast. Oh no, why? So there's a lot of that in athletics, but it literally has gone so smooth. It's been concerning at times. We're not completely done yet, but the grass is in. You could play a game on it right now. Just like, so the irrigation line to the field, it's installed, all that's there. Now we're running heat trace and insulation on it, stuff like that. But I mean, the big picture is there, and it's just fine tuned. So, we're using some contractors I met in 2002. They do great work, Precision Turf out of Atlanta. Used them a lot at Georgia Tech just because they were in my backyard. Total state bid thing, they won, and that was just a real relief when they got it. So it's been going really well, and I got to tip my cap to them.
I think my last question about the field is kind of the real comparisons to a putting green. We all know Coach Saban loves to play some golf, and I terribly like to play some golf. Can I get out there and putt in the end zone?
Only if you want to get like assaulted with your putt. I'll take it from your hand and kneecap you.
I love that. Just how nice the grass is. It's just, I mean, Northbridge, Bermuda. What characteristics does it really have, and how fast will we be on the field this year?
So we mow pretty much year round at 625, which is not even fairway height anymore, right? I mean, they think they're at a half and so forth. But the shade issues that we deal with in the stadium. But so the Northbridge was hybridized to be more shade tolerant, recover quicker, and stay greener longer. So that's how we. There's a lot of these fields in the NFL. The Northbridge, the guy Travis at Kansas City does an amazing job. His stuff looks amazing. He's got a sub-air unit too. I think he also has the heat trace, which we didn't need here in Tuscaloosa because our climate's obviously better than Kansas City. But anyway, so it's got a really fine and tight leaf texture, which actually affects the paint. It paints differently than 419. It had a coarser blade, but I mean, it's just so dense and tight. And recuperates just crazy fast, like divots that, you know, on 419, what we had before, I'd see a divot, and I mean, I'll maybe look at that for the whole rest of the season. With this Northbridge, it could grow in by the next game, even if it's, you know, 7 days. So.
Well, you guys are amazing, and y'all work tirelessly, and really, in my opinion, under-thanked. A lot of fans get out there on Saturday night and say Roll Tide, but they don't realize how much really goes into it. Softball weekends, 3-game series, 5-game sets, all kinds of baseball at the same time. Just tireless work for you and the grounds crew at the University of Alabama, and I want to just extend thanks for the fans. Thank you for joining me. Anything that I might have missed, or any interesting points about the project that you may want to highlight before we get finished?
Well, so yeah, we never did get on the sub-air unit too much.
Yes,
but that is pretty fascinating. So that's getting commissioned today. Their company is coming in from South Carolina and doing startup. That's going to take the rest of the week. There's 8,000 linear feet of pipe under the Bryant-Denny. So basically there's at least a 6-inch pipe every 10 feet. Wow. And then we're able to vacuum and then blow air back up through. And we did extensive research. Our architects actually there's only like really one competing system. And those guys it's what we had before. And those guys had kind of been out of the marketplace. But I traveled to Miami to look at a system because they had one on their practice field and in their stadium. And just the number of people that had them, and we called or met with them, and they were all very satisfied. Even Colorado, who's getting a new one, theirs was 25 years old. It didn't have the touch screen, like phone capability. They had to do it all manually, but it still worked almost entirely like it was intended. And the repeat customers, like Miami, they had one in the stadium. They liked it so well, they put it at their practice field. Cleveland had one. The owner of the Browns has one at the practice field, liked it so well, they put it in the soccer stadium because he also. So, you know, a repeat customer speaks volumes. And yes. So we developed a relationship with these guys. They want to succeed. They want us to succeed. And it's been a good partnership. And we're really excited about that. Probably, I think it'll take me 2-3 years to really learn how to use it to maximize the performance. But yeah, I guess that's it.
So no more helicopters flying over the field.
I mean, that was about one of the coolest things ever. But
yes,
yeah, and in my opinion, it was just such a. So I, left the stadium to go visit a buddy of mine, and the sidewalks were sweaty, and it was just one of those days, just everything. And inside the stadium, I felt like, it helped, So
well, that was an awesome story. What was that? 3-4 years ago? They flew the helicopter, but I think it was before an Auburn game.
Yeah, before Auburn. Yeah. Well, we had several games leading up to that had just been misty rain, and then one of those kicks was like 11 a.m. And then we were down like 10 to something to the Citadel. So I mean, there were some things, more. It was just. People are uptight. Let's put it that way. So.
On that train, and just kind of off the wall, Auburn has often been accused of watering down the field before you play Alabama. A lot of times over the last handful of years. If they install the sub-air system, can they soak the field and make it Can they keep it nice and wet for to give themselves a home field advantage? I just an off the wall thought.
As I understand it, and I'm actually pretty good friends with Eric. He's, just a good dude. He's been there for a long, long time. But and I just want to. The guys within the SEC are so helpful, man. Like if we're dealing with a political issue or usually the grass stuff we've got handled because we're all good and professionals, but it's usually just navigating university policies and this and that. There's a text thread, and man, you'll get responses lickety split on guys trying to help you out. But yeah, I think they're maybe going to renovate their stuff next year, and they're going to actually, as I understand it now, potentially go in with a competitor that we did not. So we went sub-air. They're, I think, going to go maybe with the Moats Group. Is what I'm hearing, but you hear a lot of things. I'll have people at church tell me what we're doing at Bryant Denny. They don't know who I am, and then someone will elbow that guy and be like, "Hey, bro, that guy knows for real."
He's kind of in charge. He's kind of over everything. Yeah, that's awesome. John, this has been a pleasure. I know you probably have a huge day ahead of you as far with maintenance and facilities. I know Alabama's getting started with fall camp in like 2 weeks, so everything is really ramping up for you guys.
They're looking good. Just drove those this morning. Yeah. So, but you got strength and conditioning 3, 4, 5 days a week outside on the grass. You got 7-on-7 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So those fields aren't resting. They're getting used, and then it's going to really start. So,
good luck to you. You're going to be very, very busy, you and your team. I really appreciate your time. I hope everybody can appreciate the new field in Bryant Denny Stadium. Hopefully, we'll have a new playoff game there in December, and we can enjoy the field, enjoy the turf all the way, for another 30 years over there in Bryant Denny Stadium.
That was the intent, to build for a 25, 30-year solution. Yep,
absolutely. John, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to see you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Awesome. That's John DeWitt. That's my friend, John DeWitt. Look, I've known him for a handful of years, and he is a great guy. Look, it's totally understated his role, totally understated his impact at the University of Alabama. Look, he talked about working overnight, working 12-hour days. Yes, Nick Saban works 12-hour days as well. All of the football players work very, very hard, but it takes a lot. It takes an army. It takes a lot of people to make things happen at Bryant Denny Stadium, make things happen at the Rhodes House, at Sewell Thomas Stadium. Look, you do not understand. You get out to the Rhodes House and you see that beautiful grass. You see those girls diving catches. You see it on Bryant Denny Stadium as well. Look, you got to make sure the facilities are at tip-top shape, and Alabama takes great, great pride in that. So I appreciate John DeWitt joining me on the program to highlight really the $6.5 million renovation. $6.5 million renovation, and you guys are going to be in there, September 2nd, and you're going to say, oh, nothing looks any different. The field doesn't look any different, but the players will notice it, and everything, the maintenance will be a lot smoother, I believe, for really the athletic staff and for the players. So really appreciate John DeWitt joining me, head of athletics grounds at the University of Alabama, in charge of a massive project. He's an 18-month-long project from start to finish, planning phase to finish. They finished a couple days ago. They're still installing some of the other components. Great to visit with my friend John DeWitt. And if you missed any of that, tell a friend. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Facebook, on Twitter. Tell a friend about the conversation if you have anybody interested in the grass. Look, the Super Bowl field got tons of kind of scrutiny because of how poorly it performed and poorly it held up. And I think John highlighting some of the challenges that the groundskeepers have going into Super Bowl week. I didn't even think about the halftime practices, halftime show, how that would affect the field quality. All right, so we want to transition just a little bit because in a little bit, a couple hours, I'm driving up to Nashville. Well, actually, I believe I'm riding. Thank you, Katie Wyndham and Blake Byler. I'm riding with our friends Katie Wyndham and Blake Byler to Nashville to meet our man Austin Hannon, who is already up at SEC Media Days. He's going to be covering all things for us in Nashville today while we travel up there. I believe it's Georgia day to day. What will Kirby Smart say? How many questions will Kirby Smart get asked about the driving records in Athens, get asked about the domestic violence records in Athens? They're having a little bit of a time of scrutiny, a little bit of a time of drama. Obviously, you hate tragedy struck Georgia with the young man and staffer who passed away in a car accident just after their championship parade. You wonder, what Kirby Smart's really going to be doing about that issue. But I want to talk about yesterday at SEC Media Days before we really turn it over to Tuesday, because, look, I'm recording this program early on Tuesday, and that is A-OK. We love it. We love it. I want to talk about two comments from yesterday. We talked about Greg Sankey on yesterday's program. Greg Sankey taking 35, 40 minutes at the podium, and we talked about that on yesterday's program. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, really anywhere that you get your podcast, or watch it on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We talked about Greg Sankey yesterday. Then we had our show. As we were having our show, Brian Kelly, Jimbo Fisher, and Eli Drinkwitz hit the microphone. And I want to talk about a Brian Kelly comment, and I want to talk about a Jimbo Fisher comment. Let's start with the SEC Western champs. Let's start with Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly gets up to the podium and says, it's our goal to beat Alabama and Georgia. Well, Brian Kelly, you beat Alabama last year, yes, in overtime, going for two. You beat Alabama last year. Failed, obviously got your butt kicked in the SEC championship game by Georgia. Let me play this 1 minute clip from Brian Kelly, and then we will react to his comments.
Alabama and Georgia are the benchmark for what we're looking for. And what is that in particular? It's consistency and performance year in, year out. We did it one time. So we're not in that conversation at this point. So what we're hoping that it catapults us to is a more consistent football program that is competing for championships year in and year out. We don't want any dips in our programs at all. And I think when you look at it from a tangible standpoint, what it did for us is it helps us in recruiting that we don't have to paint a narrative that's not true. In other words, we can say, look, we're going to compete with Alabama. We're going to be able to beat Alabama. It's not a fantasy, it's a reality. And so there is some tangible evidence there that you can use in recruiting, but the rest of it is really about it giving you momentum for consistency in performance.
All right, so there's Brian Kelly yesterday talking about consistency in performance. Wherever you heard that before, what sounds like one Nick Saban to me. Honestly, I hear that and I get a little bit. I'm concerned. Well, my concern level is up. Is a little higher than it was. Look, LSU. Brian Kelly, he's so calm, cool, collected. Look, when he was at Notre Dame, a lot of people gave him a lot of hell because he never could beat Alabama because he played Alabama twice and got their butt kicked twice once in the playoffs, once in the 2012 BCS National Championship game. Look, Brian Kelly had not competed with Alabama previously. But last year, he takes LSU and really, you look at their game last year against Florida State in the opener, and I thought, oh my gosh, this team is not good. Jaden Daniels, he's out here looking like a fool. Keyshawn Boutte, they can't get on the same page. They're fumbling punts left and right. They played a poor game in their opener against Florida State. But Brian Kelly really took LSU and got them from point A to up to point Z through the end of the year, beating Alabama, winning the SEC West. LSU improved, markedly improved throughout the entire season. And obviously beating Alabama at home was not a fun thing, but you got to give the LSU Tigers some props. And for Brian Kelly to come back and say, oh, we did it one time, it's not good enough. Look. Reminds me of contrast a bit with 2019 LSU. LSU beats Alabama in 2019, and Ed Orgeron lives off of it the rest of his life, or the rest of his tenure at LSU. We beat Alabama. We're going to come to their house and beat them. No, they did that. Obviously, good job, Joe Burrow. You had a generational talent. But I don't know that Ed Orgeron really took that win and carried it past. Look, they won the national championship that year because they were very, very talented. But I'm not sure that hunger, I'm not sure that drive really stayed within the LSU program. It sounds like Brian Kelly realizes, okay, we beat Alabama once last year. We won the SEC West. But obviously the Georgia bar is a little bit higher. We got to get more consistent performance. We got to play a little bit better. We got to develop more depth and recruit at a high level. Brian Kelly sounds like an assassin in that clip. Very cool, calm, collected. Didn't really seem like he was reading his press clippings like Coach Orgeron. Didn't really seem like he was buying his own hype. And that makes me a little bit concerned going into the 2023 season. Yeah, you heard me last week on the program talking about best quarterbacks in the SEC. I think Jaden Daniels is a really dangerous quarterback. Yeah, I put him at number 1, and we'll see if he ends up performing at that number 1 level throughout the entire season. But Brian Kelly just gives me a little bit of the, hey, man, just the lack of emotion, really. The lack of emotion, the clear, concise direction, the understanding that, hey, we beat Alabama last year in overtime by, on a 2-point conversion. I think he realizes that, while it's not a fluke, he realizes that the game could have gone either way. Brian Kelly basically saying LSU needs to continue to get better, continue to build in order to keep competing in the SEC. And that is a little bit unnerving considering how much success Brian Kelly had in his first year. Now, we look through his schedule. We look through the LSU schedule. Again, they're playing Florida State to open up the season, and I think that's going to be one of the best openers of the year, really. You're playing Florida State to open up the season, and then you get into win against Grambling State, probably win against Mississippi State. Then you're at Arkansas. Like, this schedule, it kind of holds up nicely. I think it holds up nicely for LSU to get off the ground at a 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 or 6 game. Look, they can get into Alabama if they beat Florida State. If you beat Florida State and you go to Ole Miss and you win, then you're really looking at an undefeated season coming to Bryant Stadium on November 4th. And so I think Alabama's going to have to be really, really prepared for LSU to bring everything. Look, I know everybody wants to get big revenge over LSU, but you have to be prepared for a knockdown, drag-out, I think, classic Alabama-LSU matchup here in Bryant Stadium, November the 4th. All right, let's transition to the other clown coach on the microphone yesterday. Not Eli Drinkwitz, sorry, Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher, look, you can feel however you want to feel about him. Congratulations for beating Alabama 2 seasons ago, making more tenure at Texas A&M right there with that win. You're going to have to do more for the Aggie faithful to keep them happy. Obviously, they basically forced you to hire Bobby Petrino and get more modern on offense. Yesterday at the podium, head coach Jimbo Fisher was asked about hiring Bobby Petrino and asked about really the strong personalities that have all lighted in the Texas A&M coaching staff. This is Jimbo Fisher talking about really the plan going forward and working with Bobby Petrino.
Jimbo, you got several former head coaches on your staff. Mm-hmm. Bobby Petrino being the latest you've brought in. A lot of very, I guess you could say, very upfront personalities. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that in the coaching staff room when a lot of people, I mean, a lot of us, including myself, wonder how that's all going to work out if it gets into a volatile situation?
Volatile? Why would it be in a volatile situation? Guys, coach, have you ever been in any staff room that doesn't have arguments or disagreements? Every coaching staff in America has an argument or a disagreement. That's part of it. But no, it's just, I'm the boss, we're the boss, we'll do it at the end of the day. But you listen to everybody's opinion. Everybody can voice their opinion. I want guys with opinion. I want guys who have knowledge. I want guys who make you think. I want guys to create different narratives that brought to the table that can help us. I think it's the best thing you have. And I think that's some of the reasons you hired them, to do different scenarios and different things like that. But as far as that, we all have great respect for each other, and it's been tremendous. We've had great response and haven't had any issues.
Bobby Petrino, I think this is the first time he's been an assistant since 2002, so he's used to calling plays, mm-hmm. being the guy in charge. You've been calling plays probably mm-hmm. forever. So what's the dynamic going to be like on game day? Does he have total freedom to call the plays, and kind of how will that work? And is it hard for you to give up, play calling?
No, there's a lot of things, and you're still involved in what goes on. I'm not going to get into what we're doing, how we're doing it. Again, I'm not trying to avoid anything. I just don't want to create create advantages or narratives out there for what goes on. But listen, Bobby was hired for a reason, and he's a tremendous coach and tremendous guy and a tremendous football mind, tremendous recruiter. He's done a great job recruiting since he's been there. Everything he does, and now he'll call hopefully he'll call the game. We'll have suggestions on things we do, and whether it's offense, defense, every coach is always involved. It's a more collective thing than people want to give it room for. And then when you get to calling, you get on a roll, you got to have a guy that can do it. And I think Bobby can definitely do that. He does it as well as anybody in college football. I have great respect for him. Me and him we've had a great admiration for each other for a long time. And his knowledge and his production and what he's done.
That's Jimbo Fisher talking around Bobby Petrino. Look, Coach Petrino is a great offensive mind, and Jimbo has had a reputation of being a good quarterback coach for a long, long time. Obviously, I think a lot of people think that his offense has grown stale over the last year or two. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Look, Jimbo wouldn't commit to Bobby Petrino calling the plays, but admits that that he's going to obviously have input, and you don't bring him in without wanting him to have input. Look, it's going to be interesting to see the two guys play out. I think you might have a little bit of a Saban Kiffin kind of aspect. I know that Saban was a defensive head coach and not an offensive head coach, but you're probably going to see. I predict that A&M probably has some blow-ups on the sidelines between Jimbo and Bobby Petrino, and maybe the way to avoid that, will Petrino stay up in the booth. It's going to be interesting. Look, there's a lot of fun storylines in the SEC, and I think that A&M's offensive kind of approach is one of them. A&M with that huge buyout still for Jimbo Fisher. Like, what's good enough? What do the Aggies faithful want? I mean, you beat Alabama 2 seasons ago, and didn't go to the SEC championship. You haven't been to the SEC championship since you've been in the conference. What's that, 2014? So you haven't been in the SEC championship in your entire tenure. What is good enough? What will keep the Aggie faithful on the side of Jimbo Fisher? You look at their schedule, obviously opening up with New Mexico. I think you open up with 3 wins: New Mexico, at Miami, and ULM. Then you got Auburn, Arkansas. Look, Auburn to me is going to be a big mystery. Will Hugh Freeze be able to get a lot out of them? Will Hugh Freeze be able to coach Peyton Thorne up into being a competent quarterback, a quarterback that will run his offensive system? Auburn, I think, has an ability, or has a possibility of being a really, really terrible team, but also has a possibility of really competing and probably winning some games that you do not expect them to win. So A&M opens with an interesting slate. Excuse me. You got Auburn, then Arkansas, then you got Alabama at home October 7th. So like, you're starting off a lot like they did last year. Didn't they start off? 2 seasons ago they were undefeated. They've had an easy start to their season last year, but they did lose. They did lose early. Let me see. Yeah, now that I'm like brainstorming and remembering it, they lost early to, yes, it was App State. They lost a game they shouldn't have lost it, but they ended up, they were 4-2 coming into the Alabama game, and so I do think that they're going to have a good early start to their season. How will Jimbo and Bobby Petrino react? How will Jimbo and Bobby Petrino work together? Can they get the most out of Connor Wegman? You heard Anaya Smith yesterday at the podium basically say when Alabama and Texas A&M play, it's going to be on. That's what he said. He said it's going to be on the up. I think that's what he said. And it's like, all right, you guys, it's great to beat Alabama one time. Actually twice since you've been in the league. Thank you, Johnny Manziel, and then 2 years ago. But like A&M, I don't really know. There's the rivalry is off the field. The rivalry really is between Jimbo and Nick Saban, is between the money brokers. I think the A&M power brokers think that there's a rivalry at stake. But you look at the records and you look at how the football games have played out since A&M have been in the conference. And obviously, last year's game came down to the last throw. You're throwing into the end zone and losing. But A&M just has not been competing with Alabama at the level. You've had many blowouts already. You went out to College Station, the A.J. McCarron, Johnny Manziel, kind of a huge shootout. That was a great game. That was a lot of fun to experience. But outside of 3 or 4 games, it's really been one-sided affair since A&M has come into the conference. So I'm not sure if I'm really buying into an A&M Alabama rivalry. I think it's just A&M wants to be taken seriously, and you're gonna have to come for the king and actually beat us on a more consistent level. Maybe Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino can do that as they work together. All right, so that's really gonna do it for my show today. I really appreciate everybody who's watching us as we're driving up to Nashville. We are on the way to Nashville. Myself, Katie Wyndham, and Blake Byler. We're going to meet Austin Hannon. Austin Hannon already in the room for Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You can follow us at Bama Central on the Twitter machine, at Bama Central SI on Instagram. You can follow us, really find us on Facebook. We've become one of our 50,000 followers on the Facebook machine. Bama, just search Bama Central, all of Alabama on Sports Illustrated. We are the Sports Illustrated home of the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm really looking forward to getting up to SEC Media Day. You guys can follow our other Bama Central podcasts, Blue Collar Unplugged, and All Things Bama. We're going to bring you another great show tomorrow. I really plan on, I'm hoping it all falls through and works out. I'm planning on having 4 or 5 minutes with Kool-Aid, with Dallas Turner, and with JC Latham tomorrow. Hopefully that will be the meat of our program as we are up at SEC Media Days. I'm excited to be there. It'll be my first time in person. So that's going to do it for our show today. For Bama Central, follow us at BamaCentral.com. Follow my boss at Writing Walsh. We appreciate Chris Walsh putting us on each and every single day. We're at Joe Gaither 6. You can send me your comments, your questions, your queries, and complaints. The DMs are always open. You can tell us how funny we look. I'm going to get a haircut so that I can look good on camera tomorrow. That's going to do it for us on the program. Big thanks to everybody hanging out. I hope you have a great Tuesday and enjoy it as we continue SEC Media Days right here on the Joe Gaither Show, right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.